is a podcast that explores our relationship with the natural world. It consists of interviews, stories, and discussions that highlight the notion that nature is not a place one goes to, but rather a place one is already a part of, that we are nature. For those of you who are new to the podcast, my name is Stefan Van Norden. On this episode of Nature Revisited, Art for Nature, we welcome Mark Granlund to the podcast. Mark Granlund is an artist and a writer whose work explores the personal experiences of the natural landscape, human activity, and contemporary culture. Grounded in a deep respect for nature, Mark's work shares his sense of rhythm and patterns that he senses on sight, capturing the experience of place. Mark earned a BA from Bethel University in St. Paul and an MFA degree from City University of New York at Brooklyn College. Mark's work has been shown extensively throughout Minnesota, as well as Wisconsin and New York City. Mark has also been a public art administrator for the last 30 years, first with the St. Paul Department of Parks and Recreation, and currently with Metro Transit in the Twin Cities, overseeing the selection and installation of numerous public art projects. Mark has also written extensively about his art, his travels, and the environment, which you can read on his website, Substack Mark Granlund Studios, as well as several articles for magazines and radio. Mark currently spends his time between Red Wing and St. Paul, Minnesota, where he is exploring the incredible wonders of the Mississippi River. Mark joins me from Red Wing to talk about his passion, art for nature. So Mark, welcome to Nature Revisited. It's a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So let's start at the beginning. Where are you from, and how did you find your way to Minnesota?
Well, I actually was born in Minnesota. Both my mother and my father's side are from Minnesota. Well, actually, my father was born in Finland, but they moved here to Minnesota. After I was born, we moved to Indiana and then very quickly again to New Jersey, where I actually grew up right on the New Jersey-New York state border. My love for nature was first found there. We had an acre lot with over 100 trees on it. At the end of the block, there was woods, creek, and rocks, and trees, and vines. Just a great, great playground for all of us kids in the neighborhood. And then when I was about 8, moved to Chicago area. We were following my dad's job around. Eventually ended up back in Minnesota for college. Have been back here ever since then, except a short stint in New York City for graduate school.
So what are some of your earliest memories as an artist, and who influenced you at the beginning?
Well, I've always been drawing. Can't remember a time I haven't drawn. Taking a piece of paper and I'd draw a squiggly line across it like a weird mountainous horizon, and I would draw little guys on motorcycles zooming across the tops of those mountains. If they fell into the valleys of that line across the page, there'd be some disaster waiting for them, like a giant spider or something. I don't know. Just always drawing, using my imagination, and I was pretty much recognized really early on in school as one of the better drawers in our class. And there was something about just getting that recognition and enjoying doodling and drawing and doing my own thing that I just always have drawn and got recognized for it. When I actually started thinking about being an artist as a career, something more adult than what I was doing, Definitely Van Gogh and Gauguin, painters of that era, were big influences. Also, German painter Beckmann, between the wars, very influential. Thomas Hart Benton, American and Western painter. And then as I got into graduate school and stuff, Lois Dodd was a professor of mine, very influential. Philip Guston is another American artist. You don't see the influence in my work that much, but there's something about him that's always rattling around in the back of my head. And then as I've gotten further on in my career, the Group of Seven, which is a group of Canadian artists who did landscape. My style is very much like theirs, so there's a kinship there with them.
How might you describe yourself and your work as an artist?
Well, I'm a painter. That's what I do daily. I am a representational painter leaning towards abstraction, so you can always recognize what the subjects are in my paintings, but they won't look just like what is in front of you in the landscape. Things will be simplified. There will be patterns that I'll work with and rhythms. So my landscapes are representational, but they lean towards abstraction, and my still lifes do pretty much the same. Mostly an oil painter. I've done also a lot of watercolor, still lives, landscapes. I dabble with different materials and media. So as an artist, I'm always not just looking at the landscape and still life, but looking at the relationship between people and nature. And right now I'm doing some paintings in tar and thinking about the human impact on the landscape using this petroleum-based material to paint with, and that will eventually eat away at the painting, just like petroleum products is eating away at the environment. And then like with my still lives, I'm looking very much at what it is to be me in this world in a way. The table in the still life is sort of a stage for actors and players. I've looked a lot in the past at my diet, what I eat, what I don't eat, what I can't not eat, my obsessions, and what's edible, not edible, questions like that. Also just play around with a lot of art history. I like to include aspects in my paintings that relate to previous painters, like I was talking about my influences before. Right now, I have a painting that is very much influenced by Thomas Hart Benton. Whenever I see anything that starts relating to something that's influenced me, that I've seen, I like to lean into it and have fun with it and let people know that I don't just do this on my own. I have a whole history of art behind this that I've enjoyed, that has nurtured me and guides me to where to go.
So you told me once that during art school, you only did portraits or the human figure. When and why did nature become a priority in your paintings?
Very interesting. I went to graduate school in New York City, Brooklyn College, City University of New York. Of course, you're in New York. There's a lot of people there. I tended to paint people, and it seemed that was a place to explore my understanding of being human and interactions, things like that. So I painted a lot of people, a lot of figures, never really painted a landscape until after graduate school. I think that was because I moved back to Minnesota, surrounded by nature. I like to go up north to the Canadian border where there's the Boundary Waters. Also, I've been going up to Rainy Lake in the International Falls area for like 20 plus years, which is really nature. It's really remote. There's little towns, but in between the towns, it's nothing but forest, a little bit of farmland up there, but not much because the growing season is so short. You know, I moved back to an area surrounded by all this beauty. It just fills you up, just impacts you. But lately, I have started painting figures again because I'm starting to explore, again, our impact on nature, thinking about people and specific people at times and how their decisions impact nature. Lately, I've gotten back into the figure, and we'll see where that goes. I have an idea that I follow for a while, and once that idea is complete, I'm done, and I don't know what the next idea will be necessarily. I'm coming to a completion with this one series with figures in it in the landscape. we'll see what happens after that.
Of all the senses, why is the visual connection with nature so important to you?
Well, I am a visual artist. When I'm actually out in nature and I'm thinking about painting a location, because all of my landscapes are places I've visited. I'll work from my own sketches. I will make a quick plein air painting out on site, small one that'll just be a sketch painting, bring that back to the studio, work on that, make bigger paintings from that. But every landscape I paint, I've been in. When I'm there, I'm trying to not just visually relate to the place. I'm trying to think of all my other senses and build off of that, build off of those feelings and those experiences in the landscape. I try to capture the rhythms that I feel. As I sit in a place, my body starts having another rhythm that's more in sync with the landscape I'm in. And I try to think about that and capture that rhythm, that new rhythm within the piece. And that's where I'll use patterning. I really like to think about transitions and the differences between rock and water and sky and trees. So I do think about these other senses. It's a way of observing and recording for me that the viewer ends up seeing visually, but I'm hoping they feel it in their body also, what they're seeing in my paintings, just like I felt something in my own body. It's a way to connect people with the landscape. So it's not just a visual replica of a place, but it's capturing my experience in the place.
Can you describe how nature stimulates your creative process more than any other subject?
First, I want to say, well, it doesn't stimulate me more than any other subject. I enjoy painting all kinds of things. You know, as I thought about it more, I really started thinking there is something about nature that is different. I've listened to some of your podcasts. You talk a lot about how we're one with nature, and we are one with nature, but there's also, we have this consciousness that in some ways tells us we're separate from nature in order to observe. At least in our minds, we think we're separate from it as we're observing. And there is something about being a human being, having something bigger than yourself to relate to. And for me, nature actually is a bit more of a stimulating subject because it is something that also exists outside of myself, is larger than myself, is a context in which myself exists. You made me think. It does stimulate me more because it is something to compare myself to observe and relate to that is beyond and bigger than me.
By the way, I love your paintings. And one of the things I like is how the environmental crisis has found its way into a number of your paintings with a touch of humor. How has humor played a role in your work? And do you find that there is humor in nature?
That's a good question. Is there humor in nature? Is there humor beyond the human brain? I don't know. I've watched otters play in a river, and it just cracks me up. And there's other things you witness in nature that are just sweet and endearing and sometimes humorous. Well, that's a really good question. But I do know humor is something that exists within the human brain, within the human experience. And I can't paint about my experience without including some humor. I have a sense of humor. Other people can decide how good it is. My brain works in a slightly different way at times when it makes connections in a way that other people don't sometimes. I've learned over time not to be afraid to just put that in there. Painting about or making art about climate change and our environmental situation right now. Just put on this summer an exhibit with a fellow painter named Drevis Hager. We both have a similar sense of humor. We both agreed it'd be good to do a show where there's some humor about the environment in it because it's way too easy to get depressed about our situation. If you can have a little humor, it frees you up to actually have action towards something good instead of being paralyzed. And actually, the good that came out of that exhibit, what I really experienced was just the connection with people, that people really want to connect on the subject of climate change, on this respect for our environment. For me, the arts are a way to connect. It's a way to get back to your heart, a way to share heart with other people, and to remind us all that we're here for a reason. We're not here to just make money or show up at our job. We're actually here to connect with each other, to be in this nature that we're in, to respect and love things, and to move forward. So humor actually is a doorway to that for me. And it makes it fun. It makes it fun to make a painting. It's fun to have a bowl of peanuts with a bowl of mechanical nuts and just call it bowl of nuts.
You've said that the materials that you use for your work are grounded in a deep respect for nature. Why is that so important to you?
Well, yeah, I'm out there painting, taking a little drive out to some place a little more remote and painting these landscapes that give me inspiration, feeling these rhythms, sort of changing my inner furniture around. I'm an oil painter, and I love oil paint. I love what the material does. I love how you spread it around. Everything about it. I love the look, everything. But as I'm out painting, I start worrying about the paint thinner, and I can't spill it. It'll kill whatever plant is there. I just started thinking, what am I doing here? I'm being inspired by this nature, but I'm driving my car to go out and be inspired by it. And driving my car is actually maybe damaging what's inspiring me. So I started looking at what I can do about my practice to be more sustainable. Switched over to organic cottons and linens for my canvases. I make all my own canvases. I found a sawmill up in northern Minnesota when I was going up to Rainy Lake one year. It's out in the middle of nowhere, west of Cook, Minnesota. This guy sustainably harvests lumber from reservations and state and federal forest lands, cutting down one tree at a time, hauling it back in. I've cut up lumber with him and brought it back to make my stretchers for my canvases and some of my frames. And I've switched over from my oil painting to just colors out of the tube to finding sustainably harvested pigments and mixing those into paints. Some pigments are still hard to find. Every aspect of my art making, I've tried to figure out a way to be as sustainable as possible because that's of value to me. But I also think the people who buy my work really appreciate that as well. The opposite effect, now I've started painting with things like roofing tar and asphalt, which are the opposite. Like before it was what's edible, what's not edible. Now it's what's sustainable, what's not sustainable. Playing around with that theme in my work.
You've also had a long career as an administrator. Can you share some of the highlights of that career?
You know, one of the highlights was my career as administrator at the Como Park Zoo and Conservatory. They really didn't have an education department at all. I was going to the park and painting all the time, and I just went up to the administration and said, you need an artist teaching classes and doing stuff here in this park, and they agreed. Ended up developing a education department that eventually got a $21 million funding from the state to build a education building with classrooms and everything else. So that was a highlight, just the beginnings, starting a botanical certification program there at the conservatory, which was extremely popular. And to this day, I still have people who were students there who remind me of it, talk about how great that program was and how much they enjoyed it. Now, at this point, I am a public art administrator for Metro Transit. That's been really fun. I've been able to really focus and specialize on public art, thinking about it in a big way, like across the 7-county area, which is what we service as the transit system. I'm looking forward to the next stage of that, of trying to develop that even further within departments of housing and environmental services and parks. But I like thinking big. I like working big as an administrator, and I love creating new things, new programs, new opportunities, new departments where I go. Once I establish something, I have to just maintain it. I get a little bored. I am a creator. I'm an artist. I like making. And that's what I've done as an administrator, which has been really fun. Taught over the years here and there, which has been really great. And then been an artist all along.
And you've also been involved in a number of other projects, such as Project Art for Nature. Can you share some of those other projects that you've been involved with?
As I said, I really like to be involved in the community, supporting the community and working with other artists, other community members. The one project you mentioned, Project Art for Nature, is a project that was started by Vera Wang many years ago, and that was focusing on a natural area that is endangered or set aside or has some special aspect to it. Doing that for like 3 years, and then all of us showing our art together and talking about these natural areas that we've come to know really, really well. That project went fallow for a while, and now it's reinstituting. So it's fun to be a part of a show at the end of this month that will be with Project Art for Nature again. I like being part of group projects like that. I also do some consulting on the side, so I've been involved with the Philando Castillo Peace Garden here. I was with St. Paul Parks and Rec for a long time. I was working at the zoo and conservatory, and then I eventually moved out into the parks throughout the whole city. So I did a lot of garden design and integration of public art into the public spaces. So I've helped out at the Philando Castillo Garden with integrating the art elements into the garden and then designing another half of the garden with seating and lighting and everything. How does art and community integrate in a space that is about mourning and grieving Philando's loss, but also thinking about what good can come from community gathering together, even in these kinds of spaces? Trying to design it to foster that is really, really enjoyable project for me. Once in a while, I'll do some projects of my own where I try to gather groups of people together. So I did a project several years ago. It's called The Book of Bartholomew, where I wrote 48 stories and gathered 16 other artists together, and we illustrated them all. And I go back and forth between sitting all alone in my studio, painting away, to trying to figure out ways to actually do stuff with other people.
Why is art and nature so important when it comes to our relationships with the social issues of the day?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a question that I think about a lot. That is my vehicle. Art is my vehicle. What is it about art? And for me, art is about agency. There's agency in finding your voice. There's agency in telling a story, sharing of the universal through the individuals. We're all struggling with different things. We all find joy in different things, but we all find joy. We all struggle. Sharing that universal experience, universal language in a way, through the personal lens, I think is really powerful and provides agency to not only the artist who creates, but to those who hear and see that art, and it really touches them. It gives them agency too. So I think art can help society deal with its angst and deal with its issues by providing agency to people, by giving them voice. But at the same time, nature tells us to let go. Like I go out in nature and it tells me, stop thinking about all that stuff. Let go. Just let it go and let nature take the lead. Let nature just do its thing and just relax. And so to me, there's this sort of dichotomy between the two, but the two of them work great together. Art creates agency. At the same time, nature is telling you to let go, which is two different things completely. Somehow it all works together. I can't totally explain it, but I enjoy living it as much as I can.
You are also a writer. You've written about your art, your travels, and the environment. Where can someone learn more about your art, your writing, and the other projects that you are involved with?
So I have a website, markgranlund.com or markgranlundstudio.com. Either will get you to my stuff online. I have a Substack, which is Mark Granlund Studio. That's where most of my writing is at my Substack. So you can follow my painting trip that I did in 2023. I talk about my art practice. I am posting a story about my phone addiction, how it affects my art making, because that's an issue right now. You know, everybody's on their phones wondering what's going on in this world. So yeah, I like to write. It goes with my painting, two different aspects of my exploring my place in this world. I have a newsletter that comes out quarterly too that you can sign up for. It just updates you on my projects, what I'm working on, what I'm doing, my travels, everything else like that.
So how do you see art and nature working together towards a sustainable future?
Yeah, it's about what does it mean to be human here on this planet in this nature. And at times you have to speak up. At times you have to let people know what's going on in your art. And that's the art part. Oftentimes that art part means working as a group. As a painter, I work on this a lot alone in my studio. But once the show is up and people are seeing and responding, it's really gratifying. And the stories that start coming. To me, art is fun. Just making art and the whole process and thinking and processing your experiences and putting them out there is a fun way to live. And I think people pick up on that energy in my work too, that this is a positive thing, even if I'm talking about difficult issues. Being in nature and listening to your body and listening to what's going on around you and just being one with it. I think that's how we have to move society forward. We can't keep ignoring what nature is telling us. We can't keep ignoring what our bodies are telling us. And we can't keep ignoring what our spirits are telling us.
What are some of the directions you see yourself and your art going in the future?
I'm exploring using toxic material in my work, which is only toxic to the painting. This idea that as people populate this planet, we're destroying it, and that some of the materials of my paintings are destroying the painting. And to get us to think about that. So I've moved to a small town on the Mississippi, vastly different geography down here in Red Wing, which is a small town of 16,000 people. Very excited about exploring the river down here with my art. The Mississippi River in this section from here to Dubuque, Iowa is just gorgeous, gorgeous river. It's just stunning. Very excited to explore that, get my kayak and get out there a little bit, do some painting. But at the same time, talking about the challenges that the river has.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Mark Granlund and that you visit his website, markgranlund.com, as well as markgranlund.substack.com to learn more about the incredible work Mark is doing. If you enjoyed this episode of Nature Revisited, please share with friends, family, and colleagues. And please rate us on your favorite podcast server. It will help us to reach a larger audience. You can follow Nature Revisited on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, nordenproductions.com. And please share your comments and suggestions for future guests for Nature Revisited on the comment section of this episode on our website. The music for this episode is The Machine in the Garden by Ben Cosgrove from his album, The Trouble with Wilderness. The Nature Revisited team consists of Stefan Van Orden, Charles Gagan, and Scott Chasky. And I hope you will join us for the next edition of Nature Revisited. And in the meantime, remember, we are nature.